I'm
right.
joined today by JS. Um, JS is a personal friend of mine and a role model, a mentor. I've gone to this guy so many times, but I always talk. So, JS, this is your show. Why don't we start with who you are? Just explain
Okay.
to the audience, and thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, my name's Jon-Stephen Stansel. I go by Jon-Stephen or JS. I am a social media manager. I've been doing it for, I just realized about 15 years now in higher ed, government, and now in the entertainment industry. I went freelance about 5 years ago. And since that time, I've been able to work with on a lot of larger entertainment projects from Invincible and Has Been Hotel for Amazon Prime Video. I worked on the social media team for season one of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. I got to work on the Avatar franchise, just a little bit of everything. It's been a blast. It's been wild. So and I just published a book called The 10 Principles of Effective Social Media Marketing that's available now, which is a kind of surreal, like bucket list item to actually have published a book. Actually, I mean, just getting it written was an accomplishment. So real excited about that. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Incredible, man. Sorry, I just realized my mic needs to be in the pocket. And then let's do this. Can you feel me? Should be better.
Y- Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. So, there's a million ways we could go with this. You've worked on Invincible, you've worked on your book. I wanna give you the chance because 'cause I'm sure you don't get a chance to talk about what you love. Where do you wanna go with this?
Oh man, I'm just what I tell people asking me to talk about social media is like asking my 8-year-old about like his favorite Pokemon. I'll just keep going and going. I started this. I'm not supposed to be here. Like honestly, like in this career, my plan was to get my PhD in literature and go back and start and teach. I'm supposed to be a 10. If you had asked me like 20 years ago where my life would be now, I'd say I would be a tenured professor at a university. But social media came around. I was teaching and started using it in my classes, and one thing led to another. Started promoting various departments all the way up into the whole university, and then you know, part of that is that academic lifestyle is that you publish or perish. So I always like made an effort to go to conferences and talk about what I did. Put it on social media and talk about what projects I was working on or my thoughts on social media marketing. And one thing led to another, and I started to develop a following. And when the time came that I didn't want to work in higher ed anymore, because as much as I love higher ed and I believe the mission, the pay is horrible, and the work is very long and hard. And I had a follower who was working for Amazon Prime Video, and he said, "Hey, you clearly know your social media. I can tell also from your social media accounts you like comic books. Would you be interested in coming on board and working on this new series called Invincible we've got going on?" And I jumped at the chance to do that, and just one thing led to another. People liked my work, and you know, so that's what I've been up to, and just I love doing it. It's one of those things that I like. I find social media fascinating. It's a challenge. It's interesting. And there's no 2 days that are the same. So it's a real blast.
Alright. So, I've got a lot because my mom's a teacher, my wife's a teacher, all my family thought I was gonna be a teacher, so higher ed was my calling, before I wanted to be an actor. I wanna ask you, while you were doing what you thought you were supposed to be doing, what was the moment, if you can remember, that you just started kinda like, what was that moment?
Oh, I can tell you the exact day it happened.
Oh, you
I
know.
was yeah, I I'm a very patient guy. I don't raise my voice very often. I'm not quick to anger, but I was teaching a class. I was teaching English as a second language, and the way that worked is, students who are international students who are coming to the university just needed a little bit extra help with their English, like would take these classes for about a year before moving to the regular courses of the university. So, I had this one student who just I could not reach him. I could not get his attention. He was on his phone all the time, and one day during class, I'm like, "Dude, put your phone away." Put your phone away. Put your phone away." Finally, like, there's 5 minutes left in class, and I just look, I'm like, "When you fail my class, don't come to my office asking why. This is why, that you're looking on your phone." And I just, like, walked out the door, slammed the door, just angry. Like, and that never happens to me. Like, I was just at the end of my rope, and the kid came into my office and apologized, and I realized, I was like, "This is not worth getting angry over. This is the world these kids live in." This was, like, 2018 or so, and, I say kid, I was still a kid myself for the most part, but, like, um, I was like, "Okay," instead, and other teachers were, like, bringing baskets into their classes and having their students put stuff, and these are college students, these are not kids, they're adults, legally at least, and I was like, "I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna get angry about this. How can I find a way to make this a the phone a tool and not a toy? And how can I teach my students to use this? Because this is gonna be something they're gonna need in the future." So I started making Facebook groups had just become a thing, so I started making a Facebook group for all of my classes, and I'd even, like, started dabbling with Twitter, like, okay, I have students who are nervous about asking questions. What if I put a Twitter feed up on the board and, like, if you ask a question on Twitter from an anonymous account, I'll answer it, use the class hashtag. And trying to find ways to do that. And it became real successful. Students loved it. And I started using it to promote our department to get like more students to come, from abroad to our school. And um, the powers that be noticed it and were like, "Hey, do you want to be our, communications person?" Which is basically just a one person marketing team. I did it all. And the way higher ed works is like I wasn't on tenure track. I was on a year to year contract. And they're like, "We'll give you a full, you'll be a full time employee, not year to year, if you come over and do this." I'm like, "Okay, I just bought a house. This sounds great." And quickly realized like what I looked forward to doing. I was doing like the website, I was doing copywriting, I was doing brochures and graphic design, but social media was like the one thing like I looked forward to coming to work to do because I could see the results immediately, you know. And I said, other departments started coming. I wasn't just the international offices, like the admissions, like, "Hey, will you come help us out with our social?" And I was like, "Look, I'm doing social media for like 6 departments here. Can I just be the social media guy for the university?" And they're like, "Well, we don't have that position yet." I said, Okay, I'll go find a school that does." So I went to Texas State University and was their first full time social media manager. And just the career went from there.
Wow, dude. Everything you just said, I was smiling because you're like, "Hey, I'm running 6 different media accounts." Um, I wanna just go back to that moment where I can't picture you being mad, right? Like you were saying, you're so, like, relaxed. I've never seen it. The fact that you thought about, "How can I turn this toy into a tool?" Where did that come from?
Well,
Like,
this kind of comes up. One, I don't want to get mad. Like, it's not worth getting mad over. I don't normally get mad at people. I very rarely lose my temper. So I had like a long, just sit and think, like, why did I lose my temper over this? Of course, it was like a full semester of me just like, dude, phone down, phone down, phone down, Um, and that was like the only thing that finally got through to the student. Um, and, you know, one, I think there's this myth of the digital native. I hate that term because like no one's a digital native. You don't come out of the womb with a cell phone in your hand, right? We're given these tools and we're just expected to know how to use them without having any sort of training at all to make them useful. Like at one point, we all got an email account, but nobody was like, okay, well, here's the etiquette of email. This is how quickly you need to, I remember taking like, typing in junior high, and it was like, this is how you write a business letter. This is, I'm dating myself, but, I didn't get, e- email was just starting when I was in high
you're
school,
only a
you
couple years
know?
ahead of me.
Yeah. So they taught us how to like write letters, but they just expected us to pick email up. And you don't think about that. Like Slack. I love Slack, but like nobody's really said like, okay, well, this is how you use Slack and make it efficient. And I wanted to provide that for my students. I think we're having the same issue of AI. Like all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, we gotta use AI. You gotta use AI. Like how? Like what do you want me to do with it? and oh, you figure it out for yourself. I'm like, okay, I get that, but like, I think we need to like provide training to not just students, because at some point, I've been out of school for over 20 years now, right? Like, there's new things I need to learn, and yeah, I can teach myself, but it would be really nice if somebody would like, here, this is here's what you need to do. But I think a lot of times with these new technologies, as amazing as they are, we're just expected to just pick them up and start using them. So for my students, I wanted to make that their phone and social media, like they knew how to find where the parties were, but like, can you use social media to find, out what the latest news is? Can you use social media to help you learn something new? Can how do you evaluate your sources on social media? Those sort of things. I think that's important.
Yeah. You were, you were talking, um, you know, you can find a party, but can you do X, Y, or Z? That sounds like my video production teacher. I had the same video teachers, 2 of them that taught me my whole foundation from middle school, 7th grade till high school graduation, and they used to say the same thing to me, "Dan, you can put this, you know, wacky video that you're putting up on the channel, which you shouldn't be doing, but we've asked you for the news publishing, why," and they taught me, looking back on it now, they were teaching me, "Hey, these are tools. You do have a skill, and if you don't waste your time, like, this is a tool." And now it took me till 30, so hopefully they listen to this. Thank you, Mr. Dowd and Mr. Kona, but,
Yeah, well, it
um
comes
go ahead.
it comes down to like what you're doing as a craft, right? No matter what you're doing, you have to treat your work. I enjoy my work, and clearly you do too, man. And but we all need to kind of treat it as a craft. Like we need to be. There's a great quotation from the designer Charles Eames. He says, "Take your pleasure seriously." Right? And I enjoy doing social media, but part of it is like, okay, how do I write this post in just the right way in this, and that's why I love Twitter, even like when it was like 140 characters, because it made me work to make my language more precise. And I enjoyed that challenge. And I people like dismiss, oh, this is Twitter, you can write whatever. I'm like, no, no, there's an art into distilling this information into this smaller format. That's just really exciting, and we have to treat it like a craft. I do a lot of humorous posts, like I do a lot of memes on, like, especially like the Invincible account, and I tell people like, humor is a skill. It's not something like we expect social media managers, a lot of them, just to be funny. I'm like, no, humor is a skill that you develop like any other. So yeah, we have to look at our work. We can have fun doing it, but like, it's it's a craft.
JS, you opened it up, and I'm so sorry, but you talked about Invincible, Twitter,
Uh-huh.
and now this is my chance to talk to you about, like, Twitter and
Yeah.
140 characters, and, like, I now like that I've been like, I used to watch what you were tweeting and, like, love it. I would try to sell it to every single company I was like, "Guys, I can do this, like, we could do this, like, JS can come in and teach us." When you were let's talk about that craft, like, I'm a huge fan of Invincibles, like, let's keep it contextual, or if you even can talk
Yeah.
about that or your social media. How do you let's just think about X or Twitter or whatever you call it. What are your thoughts? When you're taking you're right, like, humor is definitely you can't just hire a social media manager and think they're gonna be funny because humor is not easy.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear about your take on that because humor is
Yeah.
doesn't get
Well,
talked.
humor is something that so many social media managers lean on it, and it's not appropriate for every account. When I first started freelancing, my two biggest clients were Invincible and a startup called Better Place Forest, and they're a company that they're in the end of life industry. You purchase a tree in their forest, and they maintain it, and when you die, that's where your ashes are spread. So in the morning, I was making jokes about like superhero butts, and in the afternoon, I'm writing like about how to talk to your family about your wishes after death. And that was great training because it's like, oh, okay, you can need to be able to do a lot of these things. And I think humor and those serious tone posts, they're in many ways, it's the same sort of thing. It's knowing your audience, knowing what they're going to respond to, knowing what they want, knowing where the lines are, and what you can get away with and what you can't. And then with like Invincible and or any other of the entertainment properties I work on, I think it's important that like you do the research. Like, I worked on one project. I'll leave nameless, but it was a book based on a film, TV series based on a book. And I was talking to the client, I'm like, yeah, I just finished reading the book and I have these questions. It's like, you read the book? Like, I'm like, yeah, like to me, that's like the bear. They were so surprised and so ecstatic that I had
Wait,
like
really?
actually taken the time
I
to read the
really
book.
they that was a shocker that you read the book you were
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, most people, we don't, we'll just watch the show and never." I'm like, "No, you gotta like." When I worked on it, and I still working on Invincible, I've read all of Invincible. I've read other works by Robert Kirkman, one of the creators.
he's fantastic.
It's just part of it is like you do read deep and do all of the research, and that way the inside jokes. I know what the audience is going to respond to. I know what they're going to be. The diehard comic fans are looking forward to in the next season. What things they're going to respond to. So to find that humor, it's not just like riffing. There's a lot of I know it. I love it. I love it. Like I've on a few of the accounts I work on, sometimes I'll get a reply like, did they just put a fan in charge of this account?" And that's to me, that's like the ultimate
Yeah,
highest praise because I want them to, yeah, it doesn't feel corporate. It feels like it's coming from somebody. And I am a fan of the stuff I work on. I have worked on a few projects where I'm like, yeah, my North Star on any project, but especially when it comes to entertainment, is that no matter what project I'm working on, it's somebody's favorite thing. Like, even if it's not my thing, it's not my favorite, like, it's somebody's show they wait to watch every single week on, it's a director's premiere directorial debut, and they feel very passionate about it, or it's like they're, you know, a writer, an actor's big break, so I wanna give it the respect that it deserves, and, like, even if that's I'll say the show is not for me, I do my best to, like, become a fan.
I was I'm listening and watching you. That's why I love video podcasts because I can watch your eyes light up, like, the questions that JS gets asked all the time versus what you wanna talk about. Um, I wanna get really nerdy,
Uh-huh.
and I know it might not touch, like, a wide net of people, but there's a
Let's get
lot of
nerdy.
alright, perfect. There's a ton of social media managers that are inspired by you, and you're talking about taking the craft seriously, even in the humor, finding your voice and finding the brand's voice or the client's voice.
Mhm,
And then you mentioned research, right? And you mentioned one thing of reading the source material, which we can
mhm.
I'd love your thoughts on those, Twitter threads. Um, I want you to tell me what research is.
Oh,
Like,
man.
whatever you can share. Like,
I
I have my
there's
research, and when I was
there's a
calling you up, like, it's like research. People I don't think realize, what does that mean?
yeah. There's a great quote in Twyla Tharp, the choreographer. She has a book called The Creative Habit, and she talks about reading deep, or she calls it reading fat, is her term for it. Where let's say you're reading a Stephen King novel and you're just really into it, like so then you start reading all of Stephen King, and then you read a biography of Stephen King, and then you watch the movies, and then you like read the reviews. Like that's the way I approach any sort of it, not just entertainment properties, but that's probably the easiest to compare because there's the most like
Mhm.
tangential stuff you can get into. And I worked on Lord of the Rings. I read all the books. I watched the movies again. I got into academic writing about I didn't learn Elvish, but maybe if they had hired me for
Yeah.
another season, I might have. Um, but on other stuff, like when I worked at Texas State University, their most famous alum is President Lyndon Johnson. I read the 6-part Robert Caro biography of Lyndon Johnson, which had like the first book is all set on that campus when he was at school there. When I was at the Texas Department of Transportation, I studied like self-driving cars and like best practices for pedestrian friendly cities and things like that. Even though it didn't, wasn't part of my day-to-day job, knowing those things made me better at a better communicator and better at what I was doing. So it's like, um, I think part of being such a I'm a little bit obsessive about things, so I think that helps a little bit. But like, um, yeah, just going in like with going into like fan spaces and like reading their Reddit threads and seeing what they like about the show or those sort of things. Like just everything I can get my hands on, listening to podcast about, fortunately, generally, if you work for a coffee shop, nobody's making a podcast about your coffee shop, right? But there's, a handful of podcasts about Invincible, and I'll listen to them as soon as they come out. Like, okay, what are they saying about it? You know, sort of things are there, and the more I can do that, I think that makes me better at what I do. It requires a lot of time, though. That's the
Yeah,
challenge. It's
there's so
finding the
many
time to do that.
Invincible companion podcasts,
And part of it's, like, knowing you can't do it all. You can't, but get as much as you can in and do that work, and it'll pay off.
why are you so passionate about it?
Um, you know,
I'm sorry, like, what a
it's a
but
question, I think it's changed over time a bit. Like, one, working in social media is just addictive, and that is a problem, and a plus and a negative, I think, because, like, I tell people, like, that dopamine rush you get when somebody likes your Instagram post, multiply that by 10,000. Like there's something, and this is why I don't lean on AI for writing or content creation as much because I still, and it might be a little selfish, but like that feeling of posting something on a large brand account and looking and going, those are my words. That is my idea. I made that image myself and people are responding to it and they like it is an incredibly cool feeling. There's nothing else like it. I like being able, you know, I said I wanted to teach originally, but when I went to started college, I wanted to be an actor. I was into theater and stuff like that. And when you're performing live, you get that immediate response from your audience. You get that, if they're finding this funny or they're enjoying it just immediately. And social media is kind of like that, where you see within seconds, like they like it or they hate it. And when you're dealing with you know, fans of comic book stuff, like they'll let you know for sure, really quickly. So that's just a really cool feeling, and I like giving back to the fans too because it's like, oh, they don't know it's me and my home office in Bentonville, Arkansas. They're like, "Oh, the Invincible account replied to me. Oh, this account replied to me," and it just makes their day. It's just a cool feeling to be able to like. Some days I feel like I'm Santa Claus at work, like just even just hitting the like button, and just making somebody's day a little brighter is a fun thing.
that is I mean, yeah, I'm smiling because I know, like, my favorite creators used to follow me or, people screenshot now, and, that wasn't a thing we did in high school. See, I'll date myself now, and, like, now when you get a follow from the Invincible account, I see screenshots and retweets and reposts and conversations, and then I see these moments where, like, I know the person behind it, and I see
I'll say it's
fan
a team,
account.
so yeah,
Right, no, 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 right.
exactly, yeah.
It's definitely a team, like, 1,000%, and that's what I love about you, is, like, so many people who clearly are passionate about this one thing, like, engaging with the fans, you're focusing on the things that I've found most valuable when I've created content, like, you're creating a like, not that dirty engagement word,
Mhm.
you're creating a moment, and
Well, because you're not doing it for the engagement. You're doing it because especially when the fans like give you something to work with. Like, okay, I can go make this person's day real quick. Once and if it gets engagement, great. If not, like it's still like it made a difference to that person. And my favorite post of all time on Invincible is like once we had I saw a post and a guy is just like, went to the comic book store with my son. He had to do the Invincible pose. And he was wearing the Invincible T-shirt that looks like the outfit, and he's doing the pose from like the very first issue where Invincible's up against a brick wall and he's like about to punch. And I run to my laptop when I see it, and I Photoshop the kid into the cover and send it back. And of course, the kid's too young to be watching Invincible. That's no artist. But, you know, and that post didn't get a lot of engagement. Probably, if we want to be like ROI, whatever, was it worth my time, and effort to put, during a work day to put that together? I'm like, well, it's worth it to that kid and his dad. And they're going to talk about that. That's something they're going to have forever. And they will be loyal to Invincible and then watch every episode together. So, maybe it didn't go viral, but that's a, you know, yeah, I don't want to rag another. I'm just gonna make up a
Mm,
superhero name, like Octopus Man didn't do that. So yeah,
good for you not going for the, clickbait react clip. That would have made my
mhm.
job. I'm just kidding. Uh,
But sometimes that's what does
yeah,
happen. Like on
yes.
the flip side of that, like when we announced that we had that Invincible season one had ended and it got renewed for season two and three, one of the first responses was source. And I just replied, us. And that got a ton of engagement. But 6 months later, animation takes a long time. So there was a big gap between seasons one and two. About 6 months later, another fan had screen capped that interaction and said, "Oh man, this still makes me laugh." And that got more engagement than the original like announcement that we had been, that the show had been renewed. And it brought it back into the news cycle where, oh, I didn't catch that announcement. It has been renewed. That's awesome. So it did this duplicate work for us. You just never know sometimes. Like you're in that community management mode, and you just maybe this response like really takes off and does something. Maybe it doesn't, but either way, you're like getting in there and kind of giving back a little bit.
Yeah, the giving model. I mean, especially nowadays with all content most content being free, and there's choices now, the fact that I log on to Twitter or X and I go to your pages or the team's pages, that getting somebody to come back today is like a Herculean task that I'm not sure people I mean, I know you understand, but the fact that you didn't plan that, what you just described, right? Like, was that in your head that you would post something that was 6 months later?
No, no, that was a pleasant surprise. But if we do wanna talk about ROI, like, sometimes that's gonna happen. That's what you want to do, you know? It's a very organic way to do it. And it creates a loyal fan base. And again, anybody listening, I always wanna let people know because people will say, "Oh, well, you work on something fun. This is easy to do for you. People just naturally want this sort of content." And you're like, "Yeah, that's true." But no matter what field you're in, you have fans. They may not look like, they may not cosplay your product or whatever, but they are fans. Like there's people who like there are fan forums for scented candles. They call themselves fandles. Like your brand has it might be a small fan base, but that doesn't mean it's not devoted. So you need to find that and reach out to them and give back a little bit. Um,
I love that. So you're talking social media, and this is called a segue for anybody learning to produce. Um, I think you wrote a book on social media.
I did.
Would you like to talk about it?
Yes, it's called the 10 Principles of Effective Social Media Marketing. It was just released on my publisher Kogan page just a few weeks ago. Man, it's wild to actually have a book written. My hope for it is when they approached me about writing a book, my concern was that like anything social media, like books that I've generally read on social media in the past, by the time they're published, they're already outdated.
Mhm.
And so I thought back on like my 15 years experience working on social media, like what principles are consistent? Like if Facebook went away tomorrow, right, and another social platform just completely replaced it, hopefully these 10 principles would still apply no matter what you're doing. Um, and Yeah, it's kind of the book I wish I had had when I was starting out. But, we go through all, 10 various principles from like, hey, your social media needs a budget. It's not free. And talk about all the things you need a budget for. Effective social media marketing is human. It is audience focused. We talk about what we were just talking about, going in and getting in the comments and talking back. And these things haven't changed. And hopefully, I don't think they will change for another 10, 15 years, maybe longer. I hope it stays that way for the lifespan of the book. But yeah, so that's kind of my hope. And also like I hope that, I kind of wrote it with multiple audiences in mind. So if you're a social media manager, I hope you read it and feel seen, like, okay, this is the reality of what being a social media manager is like. It's not all fun and games. And then if you're not a social media manager, maybe you're interested because you've got an employee, somebody, a social media manager reports to you. You'll better understand like the stresses they face too. So there's a little bit of everything in it for sure.
I'm gonna go back to my question, like I asked you that moment, because I think you mentioned you never planned on writing a book, or, like, had you ever thought as a kid you would? Can you go back and kind of think of the moment? Was it a person, a thought, or a feeling that was like, "I gotta write a book"?
Um, the publisher approached me and asked me if I thought I could. I mean, here's the thing, like you know, my background is in literature, and I'd always thought like, okay, I might write a book, but I'm also the type of person that needs a deadline to make things happen. So I'm not the probably not the type of person to write a book and then like shop it around to publishers and things like that. And even still, like I needed that deadline to make me write it. Like, okay, I got to get 3 chapters into the publisher by the end of the month. All right, let's write. Um, I think that more than anything, kind of pushed me forward. And then also like realizing like I had been putting out content on social media, just every day, something about social media marketing on my Twitter, on my LinkedIn, making TikToks about it. Like, but honestly, the book had already been written. It was just like all over Twitter, and and how do I combine those and expand on some of those ideas that I've talked about on my social platforms a lot more, and in a more form. I don't say more formal. I think it kind of keeps my my personal tone of voice in there. And expound on some of those ideas a little bit more. And also, I got to like it's a great excuse to like reach out to people and like talk to your like people in your industry that you just instead of being like, oh, can I pick your brain for 5 minutes? It's like, hey, can I interview for my book? When I'm like, I gotta pick this person's brain. Yeah, that was a blast.
Was there one person in that process that you, did send that message to that you were kinda nervous about? Like, "Hey, I'm writing a book." It was like a moonshot person you wanted to,
There
like,
were
get
a
some thoughts from?
few. Scott and Allison Stratton of Unmarketing. They were like one of like I read their books when I was first starting out, and I just kind of sent a LinkedIn message real quick, and like, oh, and they replied and answered some of my questions. I was super excited about that. Um, Nathan Albach, who did Steakum, the social media manager from Sesame Street, which
Oh,
I absolutely love.
that
I love her work, and I'm surprised that she like gave me the time to talk, but she was super personable and learned a lot there. So like, yeah, there's a lot of folks in this book that I reached out to that I just like, okay, well, I'm writing a book. Let's see if they reply, and yeah, most folks did, and that was really exciting.
I'm gonna buy the book, I promise, and you're gonna tell me at the end of the episode where to buy it, we're gonna link it, but because I'm a bad interview guest or host, not bad, I'm learning, without reading the book, but by knowing you and what you said about the book is just all the posting you've been doing, I've been following you long enough. So let me ask you, what is your favorite part or principle or method, anything, one thing from the book for a new reader who's gonna buy it that you think is the most time maybe not the most, let's save that moment for buying it, but, like, one thing you would use from the
Oh man, that's a tough question. I would say, and it's not a principle in of itself. I
Mhm.
address this in there's one chapter about like crisis communications and focusing on that. And towards the end of that chapter, I talk about social media managers taking care of themselves and how it's a stressful job. It's extremely stressful. Like I don't think people understand how stressful it is, especially as you get to larger accounts because there's more at stake, you know. Of that you need to be able to step back. Even when it's not in crisis mode, it's stressful. Like I've dealt with so like my first day at Texas State University, I got the passwords to all the accounts. My boss is like, "You're running the show now." 30 minutes later, we get a text alert that there's possible gunshots fired on campus. It was a truck backfiring, thank God. But there was about 30-minute window where nobody had any idea. And they didn't have social media in their crisis response yet. I was talking to the chief of police trying to coordinate messaging on like my first day. And since that point, it was I've dealt with floods, tornadoes, protests on campus, all sorts of PR crises and other things, and COVID. And that's stressful. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you can. There's a reason why the burnout rate among social media managers, because even without the crisis, it's stressful. Yeah, the burnout rate in this industry is so high. I do spend a fair amount of time talking about like things you need to do to take care of yourself. Hey, it's okay if you make a mistake here and there. Like I made a huge mistake last week. I don't want to get into it right now, but like
Yeah.
it it happens to all of us at some point. You know, like I'm extremely careful, but like if a if and you know if somebody in the comptroller's office or whatever makes a mistake or has a typo in the email, not many people see it. It's not a big deal, right? But if we do it, millions of people might see it. And I don't think people fully understand like the weight of that, you know. And it's a numbers game. Like you can be extraordinarily careful, but when you're sending out at minimum one post a day, but on maybe two, three, or four platforms, that easily gets up into like
Mhm.
maybe 1,000 or more posts a year. You're not going to bat 1,000. You're going to make a mistake at some point, and being able to forgive yourself for that, and also your boss understand, like, yeah, okay, it's okay if a post goes out with a typo once in a while. It's not the end of the world. So I do address that a bit in the book, and I think that might be the most important one because it's the one I need to hear again and again because like
Yeah.
I made a mistake last week and I felt horrible and I had to remind myself like you're careful. It's a numbers game. It's going to happen at some point, and it sucks when it does, but you do your best to avoid it. But yeah.
Yeah. I, I made a mistake, uh, every day last week. But to your point of social media managers, I'm a live stream producer, which is, like, also front and center, right? Like, I'm my audio is mute and everybody comments, broken audio," and my first couple weeks, I took all of that personal, and I've been doing this for 10 years, right? Like, and then I realized what you just said, like, you're gonna mess up if you're streaming 3 times a day, like, audio is not gonna work, video is not gonna work, and then your post-production is not gonna work, but the numbers game piece added in conjunction with the taking care of yourself piece, that sounds like the winning combination.
And you and I also hope like the book isn't just preaching to the choir. I hope like some executives read it and better understand like what their social media managers go through because you need that leadership that has your back, that understands. Because yes, you made a mistake and it may not be a huge deal, but like you said, people are going to be commenting broken audio. I get that comment, oh, somebody's getting fired, and it's just
Yeah.
like and I know I'm not going to get fired over this mistake, but when you're
You're a
reading like
person.
15 comments saying like, "Oh, this person, that intern's gonna get fired." Well, one, I'm not an intern. Two, I'm not gonna get fired. It's okay. People make mistakes. But man, it's rough. the highs and lows. You post that
Mhm.
post that goes viral and goes, and then like the next day you post something that just falls flat, and you're just on this roller coaster. Um, so I think it's important that both social media managers and you know those who oversee them that understand this because it's a job like no other. You're working about a net half the time, so on the net without a net, right? So
My my, I mean, just as somebody who I can directly relate, and I this is the podcast going back to you writing a book for you, I'm doing a podcast that I would have needed when I was 21. That would have saved me a lot of head and I can tell you from going from 0 account with 0 followers to now, like, tens of millions, the pressure is the same. Like, when I was posting in collegiate, I was still just as scared as I am now posting for, a very big name, and really am excited to read your book about all of that and how I can put it together now because it does sound timeless. Like, when you first met me in collegiate, I was that person, like, I'm so glad that's out. Um, what I
it's
wanna
a
ask
delicate
you.
balance too. Oh,
Yeah,
I was just gonna say,
go
it's
ahead.
like you need a little bit of that nervousness and anxiety. Like you're hitting send on the post, let's go into 10 million people. If you don't have that, you're being careless. But you can't let that feeling rule you. Like you have to make it a part of you. Like, okay, this is like my safety valve, but it doesn't define me. It doesn't, so yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very tricky balance.
It's all about balance, and talking about balancing, I think I'm doing 4 or 5 of these today. So, JS, what I want to give you the opportunity to do, or not give you, like, you just deserve every opportunity, and we're gonna definitely have to chat again when you have time for me. I want you to speak just to yourself, like you said, you wrote this book, you've been doing this stuff, you've put in the reps. If a listener was gonna get, like, a 1-minute bite from one of the like, I mean, dude, you inspire so many people. I know you're humble, but all of my friends love everything you've worked on. If I'm a nerd, this is where I become a fangirl for like constant. I'm a nerd. I hold back all that, Lord of the Rings and Amazon. Like, I love your stuff. You have, like, a minute, 2 minutes where, like, if you could tell people who look up to you, like, one thing for the weekend, one thing for the week, what would it be?
Oh man.
Or
You
it could
know,
be something simple that you're working on, 'cause, like, honestly, if you have a focus this week that is grounding you, I'm sure that'd be valuable, or anything that's on your mind.
I think it comes down to like we're as social media managers, we work on machines that are designed for distraction. Like, even if you're on the business account, like it knows your IP address, so you're going to get served those ads of those, or that content that like you really want to click. And we have to be online all the time. We have to be aware of what's happening in the media and what's happening in the news because, like, okay, we don't want to post today because there's some, tragedy or event or something going on. And after a while, it really can weigh on you and it's tough. Like it's not healthy. We tell people like, I get frustrated because I read productivity books and like the first thing is like get off social media. I'm like, I can't. Like it's not that's not an option for me. So the rest of your book is trash to me because I can't do step one. So I think social media managers really do need to make an effort and remind themselves like it's okay if you miss something. Like, hey, of course, this is me after railing about research, but like, it's okay if you're not completely up to date on the latest Instagram update. You can catch up, right? You don't have to know everything all the time. You can take some break and some time away from yourself. If you're not the first to know, like when the newest trend on social media, that's fine. You can pick it up and learn it. But you have to every day take some time for yourself away from the screens, like and do something fun. So like in the morning I walk my dog. At night I read fiction. and give myself a little bit of time away, either because if you don't, you're gonna burn out quick. Like when I first started, that was my I was like, I wasn't married, I didn't have a kid, and like my superpower is I can just work, grind constantly. Yeah, I'll be the person who knows exactly what's happening on social media all the time, and that's just not sustainable in life. You can't do that forever. So you've got to pace yourself a bit and give yourself go out. I like the phrase touch grass, but find a way that you touch grass for yourself. Like what is something that you can do each day that just kind of helps you step away from it. And especially now because you read the news all the time and you just can't be on social all the time and see all that without it affecting you. So yeah, get outside or stay inside. I'm an inside. Go play video games. Don't do something that's not on social.
Dude, I haven't played a video game in a month. That's what I'm gonna do next weekend. JS, thank you so much for the time.
Of course,
And we're gonna
anytime.
end the episode with everybody going wherever you want them to go. The first thing, selfishly, is tell Dan I can buy your book, and
Yeah.
that'd be
Uh,
awesome. And then anywhere else people can, if you want them to reach out, if you want them to follow anything, just take your time. But thank you for being my guest today on a
of
Monday,
course.
Monday to record.
Anytime, happy to do it. Yeah, my book is available. The 10 principles of effective social media marketing. You can find it on Amazon, my publisher's website, Kogan Page, pretty much anywhere books are sold. You can go to my website, jsstansel.com, if you want to learn more about me, or follow me on. I'm at jsstansel on all the social platforms. These days, I'm probably posting on LinkedIn more, which I was weird. I never would have thought that, like if you had told me 10 years ago. But that's kind of where I'm most active. But I'm still active on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. You can find me. I'm all over social, so just at JS Stansel.
Go follow him. I'm gonna put all of these in the show notes, and we will see you guys on the next one.